All right, we should be good. Good to go. Make sure my audio is okay. I'm gonna check YouTube. Just 1 second, because I think I've had some. All right, sounds great. So it is Christian Ballard on a Wednesday, sports journalist with Ballard Sports Media on YouTube, just on YouTube today. But I didn't want to turn this into a hangout stream or anything, but I wanted to come on live and talk with you guys and get everyone's thoughts. If you're watching this back, thank you. Feel free to comment, give your thoughts on this. But there's been some stuff going around college football lately and talks about the tampering, the NIL deals. And we want to talk about that today. I don't have anyone lined up expert wise or really at all. I just figured I'd come on here and give my cents on it. Got a couple different sources we're going to use. Sports Yahoo. This is Athlon Sports that I'm using from Kevin Matthew Borba, who put this out a week ago. This has been going on as a story for, I guess, quite a while. Obviously, we've known about NIL for quite some time in the role of college football, and it's been fun to see. Like, let me put it this way: there's a couple different directions I want to go today with this, folks. I want to go ahead and say, and I'll probably reiterate this in a little bit, but I have no problem with the players getting endorsement deals or getting paid in college football. I have no problem with that. And I think the reality of the situation with NIL and college athletics, not even just football, you could go baseball, basketball, soccer. It's the whole NCAA. The reality is that coaches and schools are going to use NIL deals and funding to get players. They're going to. Is it legal? It shouldn't be, but honestly it is. There's still no regulation or rules in place to help with tampering when it comes to NIL. There's no rules. Reading from an article of Yahoo Sports, and we'll read a little bit more into it, but there was a specific quote from Jason Belzer, who's the founder and CEO of uh, Sanil, Sanil, or I guess I don't know how you would say it, but it's Sanil, a company that manages collectives at 45 different schools and college athletics. Jason Belzer says if you move the restrictions, there is no longer any reason for the schools to follow any rules. It's going to be really bad. I could agree. I think that speaks for itself there. I really do. Let me in fact let's pull this up here. Let's pull this article up. This is from Yahoo Sports. Ross Dellinger put this out last year, actually on February 1st, so over a year ago. That's not much research I've kind of done into today's show. I found something of this week and I found something from last year. So Ross Dellinger put this whole article out nearly 20 months. This at the time in February of 2024. Think about it from that standpoint. Nearly 20 months into the NIL era, the governing body of college athletics is attempting to rectify years' worth of widespread and quite obvious rule breaking across the industry during a somewhat ambiguous time in college athletics. All right, we'll come back to that, I think. At the center of many of the cases are school affiliated booster led collectives, third party entities that sprung up as a way to compensate athletes through what many college leaders contend are phony endorsement and commercial deals. Man. So, so there's the part about um, the governing body of. Let me highlight this. The governing body of college athletics is attempting to rectify, or in other words, fix and find a solution. Years worth of widespread and quite obvious rule breaking across the industry. In other words, like rules in college football and college athletics during a somewhat ambiguous time in college athletics. Yeah. So I don't I'm not an expert on any of this, but it is fun to get into and talk about, I believe, just as a college football fan. Like you have to know somewhat of what's going on. You don't have to know all the details, but like okay, I'm gonna say this. Like I said, I have no problem with the players getting endorsement deals. But when the schools use it to compete and get ahead instead of trying to help a kid out with should be your intention of NIL, there's a negative side to it. Like if you're out there, let's say Georgia's sitting at like number 3 or number 4 in the country, or Alabama's sitting at number 3 number. It doesn't matter what school, but say a team that especially like a big time program like Georgia or Alabama or Texas today, they're sitting there, they're sitting at 3 or 4 in the country. Man, it's been a minute since they had the top class. They wanna get up there. They gotta do what it takes. They gotta recruit, right? Or they gotta go through the portal, and maybe they want a good portal class. Alright, nothing wrong with wanting any of that, obviously. You wanna be the best at college football, you gotta recruit, you gotta use the transfer portal, and I'll even say and go far to say that you gotta use NIL. You just have to use what's available in today's college football. But what I don't like, I want NIL in terms of the student athletes go after it on their own without the coach being able to tell them that they can or cannot, right? I don't want NIL to be used for recruiting. I don't want that. Not nor does any other college athletic fan. Like I mean, it's it's one of those things that you look at and you say, overall, the system is broken. I remember, I think it was about a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago. I think we said on a live stream on this channel. I don't remember which one it was. Maybe I said it in a small video. I have brought up before the idea of how NIL should be regulated. Well, number one, there is no regulation for NIL. There's really no rules. All it is schools using NIL to help in recruiting and players going after the money. That's it. Okay, nothing wrong with that. In my personal opinion, I see nothing wrong. But there's like even the NCAA and the commissioner, like they don't take charge of NIL. They just don't. Why? I don't know. Are they afraid to get involved? I just like Char- Charlie Baker's the NCAA commissioner or president, or whatever you want to call him. Who was it before? Mark Emmert. Anyway, okay. There's really, unless I'm wrong on this, there's really nobody in charge of NIL. Like literally, they made it official a couple years ago. We're going back what 2021, 22, maybe 2022. It's been around for a little while. We've talked about it for quite some time, and we knew something like this was going to happen in college athletics. We knew. We knew it was coming. There was no way to avoid it. Fans could get pissed off all they wanted to. It was going to happen. It's coming. We're finding a way to pay the players without it being pay for play. Okay, cool. Fine. They want the money. Okay, great. Why can't they wait 3 years until they get to the NFL? I don't know, but it doesn't surprise me we're in this situation. I'll say that. But then you got tampering. You got coaches that want to pay players, and you got people or coaches and leadership out there. They don't like it's not necessarily paying a kid to come to your school. I mean, it is, but we see it all the time. And I haven't seen too much in like the 2025 class or nothing like that, but I'm sure it's going to continue to amp up. Where you have guys going to these college football programs not to win a championship. Now, you still have that. I'm not taking anything away from the players that want to win and compete. I think that's why Keelan Russell went to Alabama. I think that's why you have like I'm trying to think of other examples. Guys are going to go to Georgia, right? Guys are going to go to Georgia to try to win a title. Guys, hopefully now, if you're Ohio State, you're hoping that you recruit players to win championships and that this wasn't a one time thing last year. A whole nother conversation for a different day. But you also have players, Jada Rashada in Florida, perfect example. I'm trying to think of who else out there. People have made remarks and rumors. I have heard at least that Arch Manning was bought by Texas or something like that. That there was money involved. That's why he went to Texas because of NIL. And maybe that's true. But think about Texas on the verge of a national title. I think within the next 3 or 4 years, they're going to win a title. Maybe even two. Maybe next year if they're lucky. I say lucky, not like they'll get lucky. I'm just, if it works out. But you have players like that. I remember Alabama fans were out there saying, well, how much did they pay Isaiah Bond to transfer? I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but it wouldn't surprise me if something comes out that, hey, NIL and tampering with the portal was involved to get Isaiah Bond over to Texas. It would not surprise me one bit if that's the case. Do I care? No, I don't care. But it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. If it happened, great. If it didn't, great. I don't care. I don't care how teams get players nowadays. At this point, it's all stupid. I mean, it's great to see recruits go just because they love the game of football. That's awesome. But then you're also going to have recruits out there that say, okay, well, I can make 500,000, just throwing numbers out there, 500,000 at Texas A&M or UTEP I don't know. UTEP, is that a good anyway, pick a team. Let's say there's a lesser school out there. Okay, let's use Texas. Texas, big name brand today. Big name brand in history. They've been good pretty much a long time. You want to go to Texas, okay? They're offering you some amount of money. You say, okay, great. But then let's say that a smaller, let's stick to Power Four school, like, I don't know, the Pac 2, Oregon State or Washington State offers you a deal. Instead of going to Texas, maybe it's your dream school. I want to win a championship at Texas when I grow up, mom and dad. I can't wait to get to college. I can't wait to get in there. And then NIL kicks in. You get a call from Oregon State or Washington State of the Pac 2. You know they're not in the best of situations, but they got this money under the table they could give you and say endorsement deals for everybody if they join this season. Okay, cool. What do you do as a player? Well, nowadays you see 9 times out of 10 them taking that. 9 times out of 10. Now, it's not every player. It's not. I like to think of I don't know, man. The big name comes to mind is Texas. And I love Texas. I love Sarkeesian. Love what he's building. But there's people out there that are like, how did they get a hold of Isaiah Bond after Saban retired? How did they get Arch Manning? How did they get this? How did they get that? They got all these big name players now. You know what's going on in Texas? It's possible. There's been some like NIL stuff, portal tampering. And again, I'm not here to say whether or not I care if Texas is doing it, and I'm not here to put anybody down. Getting to this article too. Well, we kind of read all this, but like Jason Belzer, I read this. If you move the restrictions, there's no longer any reason for the schools to follow any rules. It's going to be really bad. I agree there. What rules are in place? That's like when I was talking last year, I was talking about how, like, I'm okay with NIL, but we need, like, I said something about like how the NCAA is hands off right now, but that's really gonna turn around and bite college football in the tail. Something like that is what I said. What I was trying to say, at least. Um, there's there's agents in the NFL that help with making sure the contracts and everything are in place, telling the players what deals they can get, where they can go next, who wants them. You pretty much declare for the NFL, you already got yourself an agent somewhere. Like Jalen Milroe's going pro. He's going to have an NFL contract. Well, Quinn Ewers too of Texas. Dylan Gabriel. I could go down the list of some of these prospects. They're going to have an agent. Why don't we have that? Or I guess we do for NIL in college. We got that. We got it going. What I don't like is that the NCAA has not really taken steps forward to try to regulate. That's the thing we need is regulation and stability with NIL. That's what we need. And it's the tampering that gets me is, you know, like so it really comes down to the transfer portal too. Um, like guy enters the portal. Rashad is the best example that comes to my mind. Um, Dion goes to Colorado. Obviously, his kids follow him there. That's not tampering. They want to go with their dad. That's cool. Um, but I think you're gonna start seeing more and more and more of these players out there that want to go to these schools that'll offer them not the best education or scholarship. I mean, don't turn down a scholarship, but um, it's like follow the money is where we're at in college football, and we've known that for a while. But there's like I define it as tampering in the NIL. Like there's no regulation. There's no even playing field, if you will. Like there's no it's not even across the board for every school. It's not fair. It's not right. It's chaos is what it is. It's madness. I see a comment here on YouTube here. Dwight, what's going on, man? How do you think they can fix that? It happens in NFL also. Um, well, free agency's wild in the NFL, I'll say. Trades are kind of wild too when it comes to deals and contracts and franchise tagging players and I might ask you this. Can you expand on what you mean? Like which part do you want them to fix? Because I mean, is it just the tampering in general? Because I think honestly, we need an NIL leadership team in college athletics. We do. Um, and I've seen a lot of people say Nick Saban should go for that. Since he wanted to retire over all of that. Oh yeah, just the tampering. Yeah, so we just need leadership, man. Like even the NCAA is not really doing anything, and I'm not here to put them down. I'm not here to beat them up. I'm not here to put down Charlie Baker, who's the NCAA president. It's I feel like they're in a position they don't know how. Not that they're like they're lost, but in not in a bad way. Like I don't blame them because if I was in charge of the NCAA, and I'm not, but if I was, I wouldn't really know where to start to fix NIL tampering. I wouldn't know where to start. It's like you see all this, you see it running wild, and the best thing I could think of that's very ineffective, in my opinion, is to pull out this giant megaphone and say, "Everybody stop! Like everyone calm down, blah blah blah, they're running wild." And you just gotta be the bigger man and say, "Stop this mess." But you can't. Why? Because it's not good enough. You need a leadership team for NIL, and I don't know if college football is ever gonna get that. That's a good idea. Let's say if it comes down to a particular school, suspend the coach, put the school on probation. So if they tamper Well, I'll say this. If you're tampering with NIL, if it comes to like football, you do an investigation, Dwight, to put to make sure everything's okay, to make sure everything is on the same page. If you find out the whole university tampered, then it's probation. If it finds out, like for example, if the University of Alabama and President Stuart Bell and AD Greg Byrne, if it comes out that, let's say they go after this recruit, he wants NIL money, uh, they're not, he doesn't necessarily want to go to Alabama, but then they tamper with it a little bit. They offer him all this money under the table. If it comes to conclusion that it was just DeBoer that did that and the football staff, suspend the coach. If it comes out that it was Greg Byrne and Stuart Bell, who's the University of Alabama president, then the school probably should be on probation. I don't care what school it is. If there is tampering and it's the school's fault, you put them on probation. You suspend the coach if it's up to the coach and it's his fault or whoever. I mean, we see today where, like, or we probably see today, we don't see it too much in the news, but you know it's happening. There's like assistant coaches that tamper. And sometimes the head coach fires, which they should, and sometimes they don't, which is stupid. But to answer your question though, like I think it depends on who tampers. If they get caught, well, I would say this. Now that I think about it, I think it does always come down to the head coach of the team in recruiting standpoint. I don't want anyone to suffer if they really had nothing to do with it. Like again, like if Kalen DeBoer or if Hugh Freeze at Auburn, and I don't know who the president of Auburn or anybody is. I don't have it pulled up. I'm not even going to pretend to know. Well, like if Auburn got in trouble, you know, Hugh Freeze goes after all these recruits. They got a good one in Deuce Knight in this year's class. If we find out that they paid him to go there and they tampered with recruiting and stuff and violated rules and regulations, um, I say you suspend the coach. Unless they come out and say that it was a school. And you know what it's always going to come down to is this he said, she said stuff from the player themselves. Because eventually the truth comes out. And who says what? It's the player. It's the player. Zona Tucson, what's up, brother? How you doing, man? Good to see you. Um, so yeah, I guess it depends. Like, there's got to be like an investigation team for the NCAA. I don't think you need to get the law involved with like cops and FBI or anything. We need like a full on detective in the NCAA, though. We need that. He could go in there with a warrant and like s- do an inside scoop on whoever got so like whatever recruit. Like I said, Deuce Knight, 5-star quarterback, recruited by Auburn. Auburn had a terrible year this past year, one of the worst they've had in a while, especially at the quarterback position with Peyton Thorne. I'm not here to say this to troll Auburn or nothing, but it is a little odd, you know, I mean, if Deuce Knight wants to really go to Auburn, that's it. But if we find out in a couple years, and honestly, at this point, nothing surprises me with all this. It wouldn't surprise me. And I'm not, again, this is not to bash Auburn. Um, if we find out that Deuce Knight comes out and says, "Oh yeah, well they gave me a lot to make sure I could come here," like, what do you do? Another good example too was last year in May, and I'm pulling this up too, but the whole Jaden Rashada thing. Where was he originally at too? Arizona State, I think. So he sues Billy Napier and Florida, the whole university. He was defrauded millions of dollars in NIL money. Basically, it was like he so basically the lawsuit had said, and I'm reading this from ESPN. The lawsuit, among other things, alleges that Billy Napier, the head coach, promised the player's father a $1 million partial payment upon signing, and Rashada never got the money, and the boosters never fulfilled the deal. That falls on the school. But also, um, so like if I don't like the idea of bribing players to come by and go to school and go to your football program. I don't like that. But I also say that should something happen like that, the whole Jaden Rashada deal where he got promised $1 million practically and then never got it when he got to Florida, that's on Florida. Kind of. I'm not trying to place blame. But if a school promises a recruit money, buddy, you better pay the money. You better. You have to, right? Like that. You don't do a college kid like that. You just don't. Yeah. Jana Rashada also had um originally committed to Miami in June of 22. I'm reading this. The lawsuit states that Rashada had $9.5 million NIL promised with the Canes. But then he decommitted that November and promptly flew to Florida and coached Napier. He signed his national letter of intent during the December signing period. He didn't enroll at Florida, and his arrival in Gainesville was contingent on a 4-year, 13.85 million NIL deal. And when the deal fell through, he asked for a release from his letter of intent. Anyway, that was a whole mess, man. That was a whole mess of Jaden Rashada in Florida and Napier, and it was so much about like, you know, I, Rashada's like, oh, they promised me this money. Billy Napier said that never happened, and there was blame and back and forth, and so much, man. You just never know. And I promise you, it might not happen this year, but do not be surprised if in 2026 cycle, 2027, um, all these recruits not necessarily come out, but like if you ever see this again, the same way Rashada was treated by Florida or acted about Florida, and maybe there was an endorsement deal or a player come out and say that they never got their piece of the pie to say, like, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised by it. Just don't. Please don't be surprised. This is where we're headed with college athletics. It's not even just football, man. Huh. It's the whole NCAA. And again, 3 hours ago, Matty Hudak put this out on NIL Daily on SI. I'll follow it. We'll keep in touch about this. Um, NIL sources argue tampering is required to compete. I don't even have to read much of this, but I'm gonna say this. Well, let me see. What's this is about a Big Ten staffer. Nowadays, agents are calling you with a list of guys that are currently on rosters, and they're saying, "Hey, here's my list of 30 guys." One Big Ten staffer said. Let me know if you're interested in any of them. As much as tampering is a problem just in college football in general, the agent side of things is the biggest issue, in my opinion, and they're just doing their jobs, but it makes it tough. Two trains of thought when it comes to transfers, too, that this article mentions. The portal system is either broken or the agents have figured out how to work with it exactly as intended. Anyway, I've gone on long enough for this one, I think. This is good to talk about, let off some steam and everything. But I'm gonna say this before I get out of here. NIL is ruining the sport. I'm always gonna watch football and love football. Let's not well, let me say this. I don't think NIL is ruining football. I think it's the tampering. I think it's the cheat in the system. I think it's the whole Rashada deal. I think it's all of this stuff we've talked about this morning. That, like, I mean, what are we doing? If a coach offers a player money and he doesn't get the money, who's to blame for that? The coach. You promised the money, bro. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You're the one that told him he could get $1 million. What do you mean? He's like, that never happened. I mean, I can understand players lying and cheating and getting to a point of saying, well, what about my money? And I could understand if it was false or not, but you never know. Like even the whole Rashada thing, you just never know who to believe there. If it's Billy Napier or if it is Rashada. Anyway, more news in college football. Heather Dinich put this out almost 24 hours ago. CFP Executive Director Rick Clark said the idea of automatic qualifiers was discussed at meetings here in Dallas, but no decisions on 2026 and beyond were made. Said it was more of a broad conversation and not a specific model proposed by the Big Ten and or SEC. We'll talk about that some other time. I just wanted to come on here and rant, talk about tampering in college football. College football is a business now. I hate it. I think we all can agree that we hate it. I'm not so much against the whole like paying players, NIL deals. I'm not against it. I just hate that they use it to their advantage. It's like they use the players, man. Like I get like having a talented player helps you win. That's fine. But paying players to come play for you got to think they got education they got to keep working on too. bribing players, taking them away from where they really wanna go in their hearts. That's it's dumb. It really is at the end of the day. I'm done talking about all this. I probably will never talk about NIL again. I just had some stuff on my chest, needed to get it off, and rant and rave this morning. So I love y'all. Have an awesome Wednesday. We'll see you back here soon at BSM. I love y'all. God bless. Jesus loves you too.